This is what happened to every lost Family Guy character, starting off with the beloved Diane Simmons, who for the first 8 seasons of the show hosted the Channel 5 news with Tom Tucker, with the pair more often than not using this opportunity on live air in order to take the most horrendous shots at each other.
Thanks, Diane. In other news, I won't be going to the play because I'm sure it will be lousy.
Tom, I'm getting late word that you're a petty, jealous closet case.
Bit of breaking news, we now go live to Diane being a bitch, Diane.
However, by far the funniest part about this iconic news duo is the fact that they're both just as deranged as each other, with the pair constantly making fun of their Asian correspondent Trisha Takanawa, as well as Diane frequently saying the most out-of-pocket things at the most unexpected moments.
So what do you think, Diane? Can I cook or what?
Delicious, Tom. I guess we should be eating her with chopsticks.
And naturally, this gained Diane a sizable amount of love from the Family Guy community. I mean, hey, I certainly loved her when I was a kid. However, this would all come crashing down in the season 9 opening episode And Then There Were Fewer, which begins with the entire town of Quahog being tricked into going to Rocky Point Manor in order to attend a dinner where they all expect to be the ones being honored.
That's weird. My invitation said it was in my honor. I assumed it was for being able to fart the alphabet, which I almost did till I pooped on the S.
Although, as it turns out, this was all merely just a ruse by Diane, so that she could get all of Quahog together and blame Tom Tucker for the murder of James Woods.
Let's do it! It worked!
However, this plan doesn't exactly go too smoothly, as after Quagmire's girlfriend Stephanie gets in the way of the James Wood murder attempt, this then causes Diane to go on an all-out killing spree, which she honestly probably would have gotten away with too if she just kept quiet about her new cardigan.
She actually bought me this blouse for my first solo broadcast.
And honestly, despite her horrible crimes, Diane's reasoning for wanting to kill James Woods and frame Tom Tucker is incredibly interesting, as only a few days after turning 40, Diane was dumped by James Woods, and then fired from her job at Channel 5, when Tom Tucker goes behind her back and promises a more attractive woman the role.
But it got worse when, not so coincidentally, Tom began pushing Channel 5 News to replace me with a fresh young face. And he succeeded.
And just as Diane was about to kill Lois for telling her this, Stewie of all people steps in at the very last second and saves his mom.
If anybody's gonna take that bitch down, it's gonna be me.
Which unfortunately means that Diane Simmons will never be seen again in Family Guy. And so, our next missing Family Guy character is Brian's long-lost son, Dylan.
Dylan, right? Your son? He good? Most deaf.
Who we first see in Season 6's former life of Brian, as after Brian goes to revisit a former flame, much to his dismay, she tells him that they have a child together.
Brian, this is Dylan. He's your son.
Oh, no way! Jerry!
With Dylan quite possibly being one of the rudest and most obnoxious children in the Family Guy universe, which honestly is quite an impressive feat. And I mean, hey, it's kind of understandable considering the whole not having a dad thing, but I mean, just look at the way that Dylan talks to Lois.
Dylan is gonna be staying with us for a while.
Dylan, it's so nice to meet you.
Shut up, bitch!
Oh, he got you, Lois!
And all throughout the episode, Dylan's actions only get worse and worse, as he beats up the monkey in Chris's closet, shaves Peter's hair, and worst of all, puts Brian's head in an inescapable bag.
Hey, where is Brian anyway? Oh, thanks, Lois.
However, it would end up being a very different kind of bag, this time filled with pot, that would allow Brian and his son to finally connect on a deeper level, with Brian then promising to be a better father and help Dylan to turn his life around.
I know I wasn't there for you, man, for all those years, but that's gonna change. It's gonna be different from now on.
Although, in true Brian Griffin fashion, he immediately backs out of this promise when it's no longer convenient for him. And we see this in season 12 when Stewie has to intervene when Brian is thinking about once more ignoring his son.
Hey, if I click ignore, will he know that I'm sending him to voicemail? Hey, Dylan! Hey, it's Stewie! Yeah, I'm right here with your dad!
In fact, Brian was sure set on ditching the lunch altogether until he conveniently sees that Dylan is now going to be the star of a new kids show. And boy, Brian literally couldn't get his car out of there fast enough.
Stars local teen and Irish trash Dylan Flanagan.
Brian, did you hear that? Your son's gonna be a TV star. Brian?
And so, after this, Brian wiggles his way into the writing room, gets fired, and then once more goes through the motions of an incredibly touching moment where he promises to stay in Dylan's life.
If you'll give me a chance, I'd like to try to change that.
I'd like that too, Dad.
However, of course, Brian never ends up living up to this promise. With the sad part being that Dylan has now become nothing but a jab that other characters use towards Brian when they want to remind him just how terrible of a person he is.
You failed college twice, which isn't nearly as bad as your failure as a father. How's that son of yours you never see?
And considering the fact that we haven't seen Dylan in over 11 years now, it's most likely that he'll be lost forever. However, a Family Guy character who's been phased out far more recently is Herbert, who all throughout the early and middle seasons of the show could be seen desperately trying to get with Chris, or of course, any other young boys in his sight.
Boys, we can settle this like reasonable and sexy teenagers. Whoever can swallow the most Tylenol PM wins.
And honestly, when I was growing up, Herbert was always one of my favorite characters, as he just said some of the most out-of-pocket stuff ever and still found a way to make it incredibly funny.
Well, no offense to you, Meg, but you're a 17-year-old girl and I don't need you here.
And it wasn't just Herbert's words that got him into a lot of trouble, as in season 11's Crisscross, once Chris finally grows tired of Meg's attempts to blackmail him, well then Herbert's fantasies of having Chris live with him finally come true.
Hi, I ran away from home. Do you mind if I live with you?
Live with me? My goodness, I feel like I want to pinch myself to see if I'm dreaming.
And so, of course, in true Herbert fashion, he immediately seizes this moment by drugging Chris with 3 cups of NyQuil and then trying to make a move on him as they sleep. Although, thankfully for Chris, he's able to avoid anything catastrophic happening by simply letting out a well-timed fart, which in a brilliant twist, causes Herbert to become immediately turned off.
Sorry.
You really know how to waste a Cialis, don't you?
However, when Herbert wasn't being incredibly creepy, he actually proved himself to be an incredibly valuable member of Quahog, with this best being seen in season 9's German Guy, where Chris, in the pursuit of a new hobby, becomes friends with an old German guy named Franz.
Welcome, I am Franz Gutentag, and this is my puppet shop.
Puppets, and I thought I'd seen everything.
And when Herbert catches the two of them hanging out, he then immediately reports back to the Griffin family that Franz was a German officer during World War II.
If he pointed to the left, you did hard labor. If he pointed to the right, you died. That man was Franz Schlecknacht.
And despite the Griffin family originally thinking that he's just jealous, this then quickly changes when Chris discovers Franz's true identity, and both he and his father are kidnapped by Franz.
I promise I won't tell anyone! Just let my dad go!
Oh, I'm afraid that is quite impossible.
And it's at this point that Herbert shows us what a true hero he can be, as he breaks into Franz's house, kills him, and frees Chris and Peter.
Say goodnight, you Nazi bastard.
And at this point, it's clear that Herbert has the potential to become an even more nuanced character. However, unfortunately, the exact opposite happens, as the Family Guy writers start simply making him a one-note pervert, who becomes flanderized to the point of not even really being that funny anymore. And the most annoying part about this is that they would just write out Herbert altogether anyway, due to growing concerns about how he's perceived in the modern age. Which really just makes you think, why not go balls to the walls, no pun intended, with this character while you still can. But with Family Guy now being owned by Disney, it looks like Herbert is gone forever. And so, swiftly moving on, our next lost character is Lois's brother Patrick. With Patrick being introduced to us in season 4 after Lois discovers his picture in an old family frame.
Huh, that's weird.
Just like you can discover a whole new world of relaxing sleep with today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. That's right, the wonderful people at Manta Sleep have sent me over their Manta Sleep Mask Pro and their Manta Sleep Sound Mask, which comes with razor-thin Bluetooth headphones, so that after a long day of making YouTube videos, or, you know, actually being productive within society, I can fall asleep to the soothing sounds of early Family Guy. And Manta Sleep also offers a wide range of sleeping masks, so that no matter what your budget is, Manta Sleep has an option for everyone. And Manta Sleep also offers their innovative cool eye cups, which come in extremely handy on those hot nights where everything is melting. So please, do yourself a favor and go to Manta Sleep and use code HARRY for 10% off. And a massive thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to Family Guy. After Lois discovers this picture, she then immediately goes to her father and demands an explanation. However, of course, with Carter being Carter, he refuses to answer any questions.
Do I have a brother?
No, don't be silly.
'Cause I found this picture.
Oh, Dick, thank God you're here. Talk to her.
And so, of course, with this being the most suspicious thing ever, Lois then tracks her brother down to a mental institution, where he then goes on to tell the entire family that he was traumatized as a child by seeing Jackie Gleason making love to his mother.
Jackie Gleason?
Beat it, kid. Your mother's busy. Hamina, pow! Right in the kisser.
However, the part that he dutifully neglected to mention is that because of this trauma, he now hates fat people so much that he actively makes it his mission to strangle and kill them. With the Griffin family becoming more and more suspicious of his actions, as a serial killer is then reported on the news.
Hello, I'm Tom Tucker. Quahog's newest serial killer has struck again. Since the first victim at Quahog Park last week, 3 more men have been killed. All of them very, very fat.
And these suspicions, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, are then confirmed when Brian shows Patrick's kill room to Lois, which features a still alive victim that is actively testifying.
Oh yeah? What about the dead fat guy under his bed?
Coincidence?
What about the half-dead fat guy in the corner?
Patrick tried to kill me.
However, thankfully Lois and Brian are able to get themselves to the brilliantly named James Woods, just in time to stop Peter from being strangled by her brother, which, let's just say, they do in a rather bizarre way.
Patrick, let him go, or Marion gets it.
Nice try, but Marion's over there. Don't hurt her!
And after this, in season 10's Killer Queen, Lois's brother returns and this time actually serves as a force for good, as he helps Joe to hunt down Japanese competitive eater Yamamoto, who was only moments away from killing Chris before Patrick's brilliant intervention.
You said the first victim was wearing a baseball cap. The second one is blonde. The killer wasn't trying to murder this kid.
He was trying to murder Chris.
And given the fact that Patrick escapes returning to the institution, this has left the door wide open for Patrick to one day return. And to this day, he remains a lost Family Guy character. Which honestly is a shame because, fun fact, he was actually voiced by Robert Downey Jr. And so, our next character is one of my personal favorites in all of Family Guy. And yes, I am talking about Death.
Who are you?
I'm Callista Flockhart. Who the hell do you think I am? I'm Death.
You see, voiced by the incredibly talented Norm Macdonald, and then later by the not so incredibly talented Adam Carolla, Death was always a mainstay throughout the early years of Family Guy, with his appearances often marking an incredibly fun episode as the writers get to play around with immortality, with a perfect example of this being Season 2's Death is a Bitch, which sees Death roll his ankle and then have to hand over his duties to Peter.
Hey, wait. You can't tell anyone I'm here. For if humanity discovers I'm no longer lurking in the shadows, the consequences will be dire.
However, of course, because this is Peter Griffin, he then immediately abuses the fact that he can't die, firstly by betting Cleveland and Quagmire that he can jump off of a roof, and then by inviting people in the Drunken Clam to literally try and shoot him.
Hey, aren't you Richard Simmons? Hey, aren't you Richard Simmons' best friend? Richard Simmons?
Shut up!
And this isn't the only time that Death has been used to play with life itself. As in the Season 5 episode Meet the Quagmires, Peter uses Death so that he can go back in time to 1984 and relive the youth that he believes he wasted by marrying Lois so early.
Could you let me go back in time and be 18 again?
What are you, high? No. Coming up next on ESPN, Women's Professional.
All right, you win. Let's go.
And boy, Peter really knows how to keep screwing this up. So much so that Death eventually refuses to keep helping Peter, and now Quagmire is the one who marries Lois and has her children.
Chris, say hi to Mr. and Mrs. Griffin.
Hi, Mr. Griffin.
How's it going, man?
Although, thankfully for the sake of never having to look at Stewie Quagmire again, Peter is eventually able to prove his worth to Death by beating up Quagmire at the high school prom, which allows him to rekindle his relationship with Lois, and of course, then make his children normal shaped again. However, despite all of the incredible moments that Death has given us in Family Guy, we would only see him again in a number of small cameo roles, with his character ultimately being written off the show after season 12. And with Norm Macdonald sadly passing away in 2021, and Adam Carolla busy making the best show on the planet, it looks like Death will never make a return to Family Guy. And so, before we get onto our final lost character, here are a few honorable mentions. Starting off with the greased up deaf guy, who honestly is mostly in here for the novelty. However, I fondly remember watching Family Guy as a kid, and laughing like crazy when everyone would try and catch the greased up deaf guy.
Oh, this is my favorite event. Catch the greased up deaf guy.
Go!
You're never gonna catch me. You're wasting your time.
And so, after a few iconic appearances, including selling Brian and Stewie some Class A narcotics, and of course terrorizing Mort Goldman's store, the greased up deaf guy eventually fell into obscurity.
Oh my god, it's the greased up deaf guy running backwards toward that grease truck explosion.
Oh, the grease burns so bad, I can't hear.
Boy, I am late for that meeting.
And our next honorable mention is Peter's old boss at the toy factory, Jonathan Weed, who honestly was mostly used during the early seasons of the show as a way to fit in some not so subtle gay jokes.
I'll take this. No calls.
Although, I must say, as the episodes progressed, I found that Peter's relationship with Mr. Weed grew to a rather wholesome place, which makes it even more of a shame that the Family Guy writers decided to kill him off in the season 3 episode Mr. Saturday Night, just as he was about to give Peter a promotion.
Peter, Brian's choking. Do the Heimlich maneuver quick.
And so, our final Lost Family Guy character is the late, great, and ever so strange Adam West. And honestly, I don't even know where to start with Adam West.
Don't ever call here again. I guess I told him, nobody messes with Adam Wee.
I mean, he might very well be the kookiest character in all of animation, with his off-the-wall one-liners and seemingly never-ending random stunts being one of my personal favorite parts of early season Family Guy.
Pizza delivery man, prepare to meet your maker at the hands of my cat launcher.
And as the show progresses, so does Adam, with Mayor West being one of the only characters in all of Family Guy who doesn't succumb to needless flanderization, which in my view is simply because of Adam West's incredible performances.
Mayor West, what are you doing here?
I'm being a rascal and ringing people's doorbells and running away.
Then what are you still doing here?
It's my first house. I'm not very good at this.
In fact, I remember being such a big fan of Adam West when I was younger that I would continuously watch all of his compilations on YouTube before I even really started watching the show. Although, unfortunately, after a legendary career that spanned decades, Adam West passed away in 2017. And with his character being fully replaced by Wild West in November 2020, it's now the sad reality that Adam West will forever be a lost Family Guy character. And so, this is what happened to every lost Family Guy character. Let me know in the comments, who do you miss the most?